Hello, my name is Antonio Marziale, and I am the writer and director of Starfuckers, which is premiering in the shorts section of the Berlinale. Very excited. The film examines power dynamics in Hollywood and uses an element of surprise through performance in the second half of the film for a character to achieve cathartic revenge and justice.
Bitch.
Hi and welcome to 36 Teddy Award. My name is Jan Felix Wuttig and today I'm sitting here in the beautiful Myers Hotel where our studio is located, and I'm talking to Antonio Marziale to speak about his beautiful short film Starfuckers. Hey Antonio, how you doing?
Hello, good to see you.
Yeah, we finally made it after a couple of difficulties.
Yes.
Yeah, well, first I'd like to thank you for the film. It's a very thrilling movie. It's at times like I told you, it's a bit of a discomforting watch, but it's also extremely poetic, I found. And well, kind of on the surface, it is about these two young people overpowering a director and confronting him about his past abuses in a, let's say, theatrical way. Could you maybe tell us a little bit about what your initial idea was for the film?
Sure, yeah. I have always been inspired by drag performance and watching drag queens and how they can kind of renegotiate the circumstances of their life through performance. And sometimes you see them off stage and then on stage, and they're just two completely different people. And that's always been so fascinating to me that they've been able to carve out space for themselves that might not naturally exist for them in a patriarchal normative society, but they kind of create that for themselves and then are able to create alter egos and kind of become a different version of themselves. So I was always inspired by just the art of drag in general. And then as well, I really wanted to try and make some kind of thriller piece that was a little bit suspenseful, a little bit scary, the types of movies that I tend to be drawn to, and then tried to find a way to combine the two.
Yeah. Yeah, I find like one of the centerpieces of the film is this rapid fire sort of monologue, and that transformation that takes part, which is sort of an act of empowerment in that sense.
Yes.
Could you describe what significance that scene has for the entire film?
Yeah, it's a great question. Uh, I think I knew that I wanted to for us to learn about this character in an untraditional way. So the mouth moving so fast, I almost wanted the image to become abstracted in a way. And so you're just picking up little pieces, but it's sort of a stream of consciousness, and it kind of becomes this sort of fever dream that you can't look away from, which is oftentimes, I imagine, what that character might have felt like or been going through. And I like that the face is almost genderless and sort of you almost lose, it almost doesn't look like a face. It kind of looks like a machine gun or something just attacking.
Yeah.
And I knew we wanted to get that in one take, and we shot 3 overnights, which was quite challenging, but it worked out. So that's good.
True. I found that like just your facial expression and the way it's shot, it's from down below, and it feels as if you're kind of at the mercy of somebody, looking
Mm.
from up top down to you, and you just kind of, you feel like you're kind of being spoken to and accused in that sense. At the,
Oh,
at,
that's
yeah.
so interesting. Yeah, I'm glad that you picked up on that. Yeah, definitely. It's to look down on something as well kind of gives the character a lot of agency, which was important for us throughout the film. That in this movie, the character who had something traumatic happen to them really only be seen as they want to be. So making sure to give that character a lot of agency in the second half of the film.
Mhm. There's kind of picking up on that. There's this scene between your two actors, Cole Doman and Jonathan Slevin, where they act out a sexual fantasy, and that seems to me like a scene that would be kind of difficult to shoot. Like you have to establish certain ways of intimacy on set. And could you maybe describe to us what it was like to incorporate that into the film?
Sure, yeah. What's nice about that scene is the circumstances are quite specific of what the two characters, what their roles are in the scene. So it generated a lot of natural tension between the two actors, which made my job fairly easy. And the plastic is sort of, you don't exactly know why it's there or at what time in the situation you're stepping into it, and then it kind of gets illuminated after a little bit of time. But Cole and I are very good friends, and we have been for a long time. We really trust one another. And Jonathan and I are also close, and they're also both brilliant actors. So they just understood what the feeling of the scene needed to be, and we just played it out. When we were shooting it, it didn't feel too like risque, but you definitely felt something going on between the two of them, which I think was captured.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I found kind of, this, it's an incredible build up to a scene, because you have that kind of fixed frame. You're looking through kind of a door frame with the door kind of half closed.
Yeah.
You have that plastic. There's a lot of, storytelling going on there. And I thought also kind of, formally, because, this might seem like a kind of weird question, but how important was sound design to the film? Because I found that there's certain, like the crackling of the plastic plane and sort of the director smacking his lips during eating. There's a lot of, that gives a very visceral feel to the film.
Definitely, yeah. And we definitely pulled out those sounds that naturally happened on set that we leaned into when we were shooting it. But the natural sounds that occur when you're filming, to me, they really just feel part of the soundtrack. And I love to kind of pull them out and work with them, especially if they're odd or can kind of enhance a feeling that you want in the scene, like when Jonathan is chomping or his utensils are scratching against the plate, and the sound of the plastic being quite strange, and it almost feels voyeuristic, like you're not maybe supposed to have access to the scene, and yet you're there as an audience.
Yeah, it does feel it. And like I said, there's these elements of storytelling kind of going on that's tell you a lot about the characters by not just dialogue, but by sounds, but also by the look of the film. I mean, there's this. I found there was this focus also on architecture and modern design, kind of clear lines and perfect lighting. Could you tell us maybe how you kind of conceived the look for the film?
Sure. What I noticed is you really, whatever your location, you end up getting whoever lets you shoot in their house, especially a really nice house, obviously like super grateful, and you kind of work and move your script around based on what you're given. So when we scouted the house and saw that there were a lot of elements to it that were really working in our favor, we just tried to really lean into those and highlight those and try to lean into, you know, this kind of sleek beauty that can come from Los Angeles and the architecture here.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned earlier that kind of you looked a lot into the drag queen culture, and this is kind of configured in a specific way in this film. I mean, there's this, you know, this background of kind of systematic Hollywood abuse. What interested you in bringing kind of these two topics together?
Well, I think for one, it's interesting for the takedown to be from a feminine place, because I think in Hollywood in general, there can be a kind of fetishizing of masculinity. And so I like that the kind of conquering of that is something quite feminine and queer and unapologetic. I was definitely inspired by a lot of different drag performances throughout the years, like Lip Synca, who was famous in the 80s, used to like answer phone calls and deliver famous lines from films. Only in this sense, he's kind of turning down the initial invitation to a pool party that initiated all of the abuse. But you know, it's funny because I was trying to look for a Marilyn Monroe impersonator, because there's a whole website where you can find them. And I emailed a couple of them to see if maybe they could record the voices, but no one got back to me. So I just decided to go into a recording studio and see if I could do it all. And it turns out that it was kind of, it worked strangely that I was able to do that. And then from there, I sent that MP3 off to everyone when I asked people to get involved, and that really helped them like understand the world of the film.
Mm-hmm. And that kind of, you know, that monologue at the end, did you just come up with that, you know, like in the moment, or was it kind of like
yeah, kind of, actually. Like I had a lot of coffee and just like stream of consciousness wrote it out, and then in one breath, just kind of like, blah.
Yeah, because there's some very kind of, you know, like I am not invisible, I'm invincible, you know. There's this beautiful lines in there, and that, you know, kind of delivered from sort of the mouth of Marilyn Monroe in a sense, you know. This just, yeah, well, incredibly creative and poetic in that way. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Of course. And I think, yeah, I mean, there's these different ways of kind of bringing about that kind of transformation. You have all these gestures, you know, with the hands and everything.
Yeah.
For you as an actor, what was important to you in portraying that character, or how would you make a move, and how did you kind of put your body into the performance?
A lot of the times when queer or trans folks are presented in film, there's this kind of superficial obsession with the physical transformation of one gender to another. And usually that consists of a scene where the character is putting on lipstick, which to me is a bit overdone. And so I wanted to cover that moment from the audience to make sure that that moment was for the character, but it kind of also helped to cover the face that the character felt of the shame that came from falling for this man's kind of scheme.
Yeah.
And the movement pieces actually kind of came in the moment. You know, sometimes you have dialogue and you realize, like, let's just cut all of that and make this sort of a movement piece. I find sometimes that if you can learn about character through physical gesture versus lines, it's always more interesting to me, or can be at times, especially because in the second half of the movie, there is so much text. Having a moment of silence between these two characters, I thought might be interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely gives the film the right kind of balance, I felt.
Mm.
But especially, you know, that kind of interchange between dialogue and gestures is incredibly, especially in the scene of the, you know, of the pool party phone call, where it's just kind of like, and it's, you know, the synchronicity is just mind bending. Yeah, and
We
it's
had a little MP3 speaker that we used, and on the day I was just kind of lip syncing it, but I had listened to it so many times
yeah,
and knew that some of the things we really had to get in one take. So it almost just became second nature. Like I had listened to it so much that I could do it and not have to worry about maybe flubbing something up and then not being able to get something in a long take.
yeah, yeah. No, that I found that that shows really well. I mean, this is just a great scene.
Thank you.
And I mean, you've done, you know, you've got quite a track record. I would say. I mean, there's been a lot of, you know, you've done Supernatural, and you've done Altered Carbon, and you've also had Fall to Fame, and you know I'd say you've seen your fair share of sort of, you know, of the industry. I mean, has that kind of topic of Hollywood abuse, so to speak, has that been on your mind for a longer time, or is it just kind of a new sort of idea?
Yeah, I think it's a good backdrop for the film to take place on because the power dynamics in Hollywood are just quite um, sharp, and it plays into the performance aspect of the second half of the film, I think, nicely, especially because there's some Marilyn inspiration or just some of these old starlets. So I think it kind of brings the piece together in a cohesive way. Um, so that was definitely the inspiration there. You know, being an actor in Hollywood, you definitely have experiences where, you know, there are inherent power dynamics that come in this field. And so that was definitely something that inspired the piece, just the kind of idea that there are a lot of haves and those with privilege and those without. And the contrast between the two is really intense living in somewhere like Los Angeles.
Yeah, definitely. But I think you found a really beautiful way to get all that kind of into one film, and kind of, you know, transform that into a very, you know, like very thought-provoking and beautiful and poetic experience. Yeah, that's really
Thank
nice.
you so much.
Yeah.
That means a lot. Thank you.
Well, Antonio, thank you so much. I think that's it from me. Um, I wish you all the best with Star
Yeah.
Focus, and I hope you, yeah, you have a very great time to showing it at the Berlinale.
I'm so excited and I can't wait.
Yeah.